Well, Justice Served TV. Oh, I thought we were just going to have the top of Linda Kenney Baden's head today. Michael Bryant with you here, Justice Served TV. We have so many amazing updates for you, including the trooper, Mr. Good. Has he done bad? What's the latest in the SJC and the Fitzsimmons case? But first, are you all together there? You got what you need?
I'm a little discombobulated, okay?
Well.
I'm a little discombobulated. You know, I can't give you an excuse like I ran the marathon yesterday in New York City, or that maybe traffic was bad when I was on the road. I just discombobulated, Michael Bryant.
Just normal Tasmanian devil mode.
Monday.
I get it.
It's Monday.
I saw a lot of people walking around town with, sporting their medals today.
Yeah.
I was in town for a little bit, and I saw a lot of folks with those. So congratulations to those folks. As has been said so many times, they're all winners.
They actually are. I watched the end, the last people coming in last night who ran, and I give them credit because they're also super peoples in their own right.
Good transition. We're going to save our rip and read for later because our very special guest has limited time, and we want to pull every single nugget of his wisdom, intelligence, and insight from him before we have to kick him loose, and then we will get into some of the other stories, and there are many that we're going to talk about for today. So you know him. You love him. The guy is retired, FBI special agent Michael Easter. And there he is. Look at this guy. You look even smarter than usual with your glasses on. What's the deal? How are you, sir?
I'm good. I've started to realize I can't read things that are in front of me.
So
welcome
to
the club.
Somebody said I look like a candy cane. So it's all obviously, no matter how you look, it's up from that.
I think you look like a candy striper. Yeah. So first of all, give us an update. What have you been doing? What's going on with Mr. Easter?
I'm still busy doing trials, and I would say a majority of what I do now is trials, where it's a little bit of a departure for me because I used to be able to be part of investigations in the early phases of cases, which is obviously very exciting for those that haven't been in one. And then I had a lot more opportunity to teach, and so I kind of down into the 1/3 of what I used to do. But that third is more now. So I do more trial. I testify this year. I've been testifying almost once a week.
Wow.
And
wow.
And so I know, right?
Michael, you are a beast.
Yes.
You are, to devote somebody I know and love very well. You are a beast.
And most people think, well, testifying, come on. It's not the couple hours testifying. It's all of the time you have to prep for that. You have to know the case inside and out. You are the expert, and you got to be ready for anything. So that's a grind. Is that by design, or are a bunch of things just coming to trial at the same time?
It's partly by design, and maybe just a general acceptance that I still have obligations to pay for 2 kids in college, and
that's not expectation. That's terror.
And a third that's going to be close behind.
Oh my gosh.
And if I'm honest, I actually really enjoy. Maybe enjoy is a strong term. I still find fulfillment in going to the trials, and even though a lot of the trials are very similar and your testimony can sound very similar, each trial is different because you have different defense attorneys, different prosecutors, different suspects, and it's like a mini drama most of the time, which why you guys have a podcast. Trials can be entertaining.
Yep, no doubt about it. So is there ever been a trial? Well, I can't say ever, but let's just say a recent recollection, any more entertaining, educational, frustrating than the Karen Reed case? No, probably not. As those folks who may be unfamiliar with your connection to that case, you were designated as a witness for the defense in that case. And then Bev said, I won't allow it. She would not allow you to testify, deciding that your expertise, which is, correct me if I'm wrong here, primarily cell phone and data location. I'm still going with data, Michael. And she decided the jury, they could figure it out without your help. Right? In a nutshell.
I would agree almost 100% with you, Michael. Only one thing I would add is that I think ultimately she felt that that my secondary role that I provided to Alan and Karen was an investigative review of Massachusetts State Police investigation. And ultimately, I think she said, and maybe I'm paraphrasing, that the jury's will see whether or not the trial or the investigation was done properly or not. And you don't need Mike Easter to come in and point out things that weren't done correctly. And, we talked about that, I think, in previous interviews or conversations we've had. And I think I said, I don't hate to give Judge Cannone credit, but ultimately he was right? The jury did see it. And I think not only is that a credit to the jury, but it's a credit to the defense team of pointing out those things through the witnesses that they brought forward and the witnesses that the state brought forward, or the Commonwealth.
But in fairness, a lot of the things that we could tell, because we had been privy to the oral argument, were in your report. Okay. So just like all of us who hire experts as trial attorneys, we rely on our experts to educate us so that we can ask the appropriate questions. And I think once we saw what you brought to the table, we know where a lot of those questions came from early on. And that's what people don't understand about hiring experts. It's not just having you testify, it's you educating us as the attorneys who have to try the case.
Linda, you break up a really, important point. And that's sort of now, as I dive into helping defense attorneys, is in my sort of early years of law enforcement, I thought defense attorneys always just wanted to hide something and try to get something over on you. And the reality now that I work with defense attorneys, they're similar to the prosecutors. Tell me what the data shows. Tell me what you think the government's witness or the opposing witness is going to represent or say the evidence shows. And what are the questions I should ask these individuals so that I can best represent my client? And I've found that to be universal, from whether I'm helping a public defender or a private attorney. And so I want to say I'm pleasantly surprised that really has been my interaction with all but one attorney in my entire time.
And that's
who was that?
Great.
Who was that attorney?
Oh, his entertainment comes out.
That's one thing that I loved about the trial prep and practice. You become kind of a quasi pseudo expert yourself as the attorney. You have to have a certain level of understanding to do cross-examination or direct examination and anticipate the other side that you're not representing. So I loved it. It's kind of, you can learn so many cool things through experts like yourself. Or Ian Whiffin. The reason we wanted to bring you on is to talk about, I think, these very odd videos that Cellebrite put out on the heels of the Karen Reed decision. Again, of course, not guilty on anything but the DUI charge. And the reason for it and the methodology and the things that were said. This is an in-house production, 2 parts, and we're going to hit some of the high points and get your reactions. Give me you've looked at it, obviously, just your initial thoughts on the purpose, the presentation, and the effectiveness of this.
I like, Michael, that you gave me 3 things. We could be brothers at this point. My first reaction was when you emailed me and said, would you be willing to comment on these things? And I was like, they made a video? Well, I can't imagine it's very interesting, but okay, I'll look at it. And not only was it really interesting, but most, kind of the takeaway was it was disappointing. I was really disappointed as somebody that's in this arena of expert testimony, that they felt like this would provide value to them as individuals and would provide values to them as a company of Cellebrite. We have to accept that maybe somebody at Cellebrite did see this, maybe in-house counsel or management thought, yeah, let's do this. And then one of my other thoughts was, this is why PR firms exist. You should probably, if you feel like you need to address things that came out as or detrimental to your product, your tool, or to your company, and you should have consulted with somebody that has experience in this area. I don't think these 2 individuals did anything to improve their standing or credibility, and did nothing, if anything, did harm to the credibility of Cellebrite.
Yeah.
And can I say this, Mike? I say that with disappointment because I've seen the tool be necessary to solve some very big cases and lead us in areas to recover young ladies that have been missing, abductions. Um, I don't want to go into all the cases because it's not the point. But my point is that the reason I found it disappointing is that those videos call into question the credibility of the tool, and they didn't do anything to overcome that, but instead almost doubled down on it and treated it as if us that viewing it as if we're too stupid to understand. And the problem with that is it is a necessary tool and investigative strategy for cases not only within the U.S. but overseas, and so that's why I felt it was disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Linda, before we
And-
jump into it, yes, have another question before we jump right into this.
But just because you're going to jump into it, I just have a question with regard to because I mean, Cellebrite's been used when I've been a defense attorney in cases, going back 15 years, and it's always, as a defense attorney, when you got a Cellebrite report, you said, "Wow, this is like this is spectacularly going to be spectacularly good." But then, as I've had experts look at the reports, I have found that it's only as good as the interpretation of the data that would come out of it. In many cases, missing some very key and important points in cases that I've had. And I've had some pretty high profile cases, but I was disappointed as an attorney and as somebody who's in the justice system in Mr. Whiffin's testimony, in the fact that it seems to me that you could just, if you don't like a search, you could, whether it's right or wrong, you could just remove it, and say it's not credible. And who do you have as defense attorney or anybody to go up against that? And I just think that did a huge disservice, because now I don't trust things as much as I did when I as a defense attorney got a Cellebrite report.
Right, and I totally agree with that concept, and that reaction is natural, based not only on the trial, but then these two videos almost double down on that kind of concept. And to your point is that Heather Barnhart, who was doing the interview, she even said, we want to make sure that going forward, the people that are pushing the buttons, that the answer is correct in their face. And she said something almost verbatim to that. What's scary about that is they're just saying that for one aspect. How many other aspects of the examination produced a result that's not correct in your face? And how many years will it be before we determine which ones those were? So that's where I take issue with it. And I don't want to get too deep into the woods yet, because I know you guys are going to have a lot of questions, but Linda, it's a great point.
Okay, so let's to both of your points here. What's the purpose of this work then? Because if it was to resurrect the reputation, I just don't think it was very effective. Let's start first with just because I want to see the like the intro itself. You get a feel for this.
This case is like a super onion.
Infamous Google search, hospital long to dying of cold.
Cellebrite updated physical analyzer.
This Google search became a pivotal piece of evidence for the defense.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Ask the Expert. I'm Heather Barnhart, and I'm here with Ian Whiffin, the infamous genius who was tied to the Karen Reed trial. We are here for the very first time to discuss this with you.
We are coming on.
Okay, we don't need this part. The setup that was high octane setup here for this, but she's already called him a genius once, so I guarantee you that's just the beginning. Let's jump to what is categorized basically as the first and most important question from their purpose, for their purposes. And I think a lot of people in retrospect are asking the same question themselves. And that is, again, this is Ian Whiffin, who is the guru of Cellebrite, right? And so why wouldn't you have him in the trial? Well, let's talk about
Why
that.
were you brought into this case?
Okay. So I initially got involved in this case after a true crime podcaster contacted Cellebrite asking for clarification because of some things that he'd seen in other people's blogs, some things that had been tweeted related to an artifact that Physical Analyzer had passed. Basically, police had obviously extracted a bunch of phones at the time of John's death, done their own analysis, including the analysis of a witness's device, which was written off at the time as not containing anything relevant to the case. About a year later, defense experts took that same extraction and ran it through physical analyzer as well, and now found a timestamp which they thought was a smoking gun. The timestamp itself was related to a Google search, the infamous Google search, "How long to die in the cold," which is an obvious misspelling of the term "how long to die in the cold." I'll say that this search had actually been found initially by police using physical analyzer 752. But at that time, the timestamp attached to it was around 6:23, 6:24 a.m. after John's body had been found and therefore deemed not evidentially significant. However, when the expert for the defense took the same data, they used a newer version of physical analyzer. This newer version had additional support. Obviously, we always add support for new artifacts as time goes on. And this new artifact support for a database called browser state gave a timestamp of 2:27 a.m. For that same Google search. And that's important. 2:27 is a really important time because that would mean that this is around 3.5, 4 hours before John's body was found, implying that somebody had some knowledge that he was outside dying in the cold before anybody should have known that that was the case. So this Google search became a pivotal piece of evidence for the defense to try to prove that someone other than Karen was responsible for John's death.
So
Okay, so there's the foundational reason for the video. At least that's how I read it. Michael, what's your take?
Yeah, I not to, hopefully I'm not sounding just totally that I hate everything about it, but first I would address her demeanor and her categorizations, kind of just overly championing Ian Whiffin. And I don't have anything against Ian Whiffin. I just think you may not want to start off an in-house video talking about his pure genius. And I'm not saying he's not a genius. I just don't know that you need to start off with so much praise when the goal of the video is to inform the audience and not to lavish Mr. Whiffin with praise. I don't think that's helpful to their position at all. Then second, what stood out to me right away was Whiffin's own statement in the video, which stated that he first became aware of this artifact's timestamp, or the error in the timestamp, from a podcaster, true crime podcaster. Well, you both have to correct me. Maybe I got Dever syndrome here and I have a faulty memory, but I thought his testimony was that he learned of it from defense expert Green calling the help desk. And I thought that was his testimony. And so that right away, if I was in-house counsel with Cellebrite, I'd been like, well, we probably should fix that part of our video before we send it out, because that was not your testimony, Mr. Whiffin. So those were, from that, were my two biggest takeaways. Was and we'll hear some more verbiage from her of how she describes Whiffin. And please I hope your audience understands, I'm not saying Whiffin is not smart. I'm not saying he's not a forensics expert. I'm just saying that this is probably not the place to do that type of praise. It should have been an informative and try to gain back some goodwill from your customers of, hey, listen, maybe this didn't look so great, but let us have an opportunity to explain in our own terms where we're not getting cross-examined and having to respond to questions. Let us phrase it in our own process. Let us have our own narrative, right? So
Yeah, and whoever was the, shall I say the genius that decided this was the way to go about a tour to gets back reputation may have to go back to school, given our comments. And the most that I've seen is even people that aren't following this channel, kitty cat naps a day called it cringe, and then all of our viewers are calling it cringe, and also we see that going through, that the reaction is not good.
Yeah. And what's interesting is I almost wonder did they think it was just going to be people that are Cellebrite employees that watch this video? And yes, maybe their video only gets, I think I checked it this morning, it was like around 3,000 views. Yeah. But it's that old retweet. It's the review. Like, it is going to be
It's
dissected.
the
but-
cross-examination, Michael,
Guys-
forevermore, right?
You
It's
mean
the
kinda like this?
cross-examination.
Oh,
Yeah.
when I started watching this, I was like, oh my God, at some point they'll both be sitting in the jury or the witness box and hear that video played for them as they're being cross-examined.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, on the superficial front, because that's of course where I shine, this production is so. I looked at it. Well, that's not a bad high school project. I mean, it's just not good. And I'll make one other observation for Miss Barnhart. No woman looks her best with her hair pulled back like that.
Typical man.
I'm sorry, just loosen up, baby.
Okay, everybody. All right, everyone, just smack Michael Bryant across the face. It's okay.
Okay, so now we're going to move to, and this is one of the more substantive questions having to do with the analyzer and the change to it. So let me cue that up, because the way they poo-poo this was rather shocking. So here we go. Okay.
Correct, to the best of our knowledge and ability at the time, based on the research. We always want to give information which can be verified by the examiners. And in this case, once I started to look at the data and look at the evidence, I determined that the timestamp in the browser state database was related to the time that the tab, so the browser tab actually took focus, and not the time that the search occurred or the navigation event occurred. So essentially, if you imagine opening up a brand new tab at 10 a.m. in the morning, using it to surf for 30 minutes or so, visiting numerous web pages during that time. When you eventually close that tab, a record's created in the browser state database saying the tab opened at 10 a.m. The last page that was visited, the one that was visited at like 10:30, is this. So there's no correlation between the two. And that's essentially what my research was focusing on, that timestamp is not necessarily the time the page was visited. It could be before, it could be after, but it's irrelevant to the actual URL. So based on that, we updated our decoding to remove any kind of confusion and to ensure that we give you the web page that was visited, but we can't say that this is the time. So we just remove the time altogether because we don't.
And I think that's way better. And something I wanted to comment to some of the social media trolls who have zero digital forensics knowledge in their bodies, but think they know better than our very own Ian Whiffin. Tools cannot be static in nature. A static tool should never be used in a forensic lab ever, because technology is constantly changing. These apps change, browsers change, and we adapt to it. So we have to just keep the research going and keep feeding our tools and making them better.
Yes.
Okay,
Excuse me. Can you stop this, Michael? Because I want to just say something here. Yes, dear. Let me use that terminology for you. Us viewers, including us lawyers who do this all the time, we don't rely on people. We have no knowledge of anything that's going on. And you who have to convince the jury that what you do is true, you just talk down to everybody in the world who does not have, Ian Whiffin does not have a degree, from what I understand. Talk down to everybody in the world who doesn't do digital forensics and says, well, we know best. I think that part was just a disaster, but I'm just a lawyer.
Like Michael says, I don't think the audience was regular folk. I think it was in-house, and so they're all very happy with themselves. So Michael, let's set aside the timing of the need to make a change, which was after trial one. Now they make a change. What's your take on this need to keep enhancing the software, making changes as necessary, and then apply that to the specific use here?
Mm-hmm. In my experience, I use tools as well, and there's instances where a business record or some type of geolocation file may come to me that is not supported by the tool, and I recognize that because I'm looking at the foundation or the actual data, the raw data, and making that determination that the tool will not conduct the analysis correctly, right? And so there's instances where I would do that by hand, or I'd inform the developer, we have new types of files your tool will not ingest. These are the things we need the tool to identify, and this is what I want the tool to produce. based on the raw data. Now, that's from the perspective of looking at raw data and telling the tool what to do. I get the feeling that they let the tool do something, and then when it comes out, they take it as fact, and it's not until it doesn't, scan with the rest of their case that then they go, well, maybe the tool gave us something wrong. Maybe we should figure out if the tool's doing this correctly. And that's worrisome, right? And I think we could all agree to that, because if, as Whiffin had testified to it, if Mr. Green didn't call the help desk, or as maybe he's saying now in his video, that blogger didn't reach out, would we all still be moving forward with the tool producing a timestamp of 6/27, right? And we have to accept that that's probably going to have happened or be possible. And so I don't like this fact that the validation and testing is something that he describes as his benchmark for fixing something, yet the conclusion got worse. And the conclusion is we have no idea what time this thing occurred. We don't know if it was or wasn't at 6/27 or 6/23 or 7/27. So we're just going to get rid of it because we can't understand why the tool shows it. That, to me, is a fundamental misunderstanding of the raw data, which is what I'm trying to describe. And I go into this a lot. I'm probably talking too fast for you on this one, but is the tool is not the expert. The tool is not the expert. You are the expert. You should be able to interpret the raw data and produce a result absent the tool. And then you should be telling the tool what to produce for you in the extraction. So these are going to be really challenging points for them and any Cellebrite examiner going forward, for sure.
It seems
Michael,
to
can I
me
just ask? Go ahead, Michael.
the tool is Ian Whiffin, but it seems to me that it's almost like so convenient, it's suspicious. Now that this 227 search is so damning, then it's irrelevant, and let's just say it never really happened because we're fixing the tool now. And he may be 100% right. I don't know. You know far better than I would, Michael. But maybe that's true. Maybe they did need to fix it, and maybe it is giving some misleading information. But how do you believe that in the context of how they used it in this case?
That's a really great point, and I would tend to agree that what the tool is doing should have been corrected because it's ambiguous as to the time. And I think if you were to go back and watch some prior videos that you and I've had together, you asked me at one point what I thought about Cellebrite, and one of the comments I tend to recall making was that in my experience, Cellebrite has never done good with time. And I've always tried to instill in students that I work with is don't let Cellebrite, or I mean, I don't even want to only say Cellebrite, don't let the physical extraction of a mobile device be your sole source of intelligence for timeline assessment. You really need to focus on outside factors to develop timeline, and let the physical extraction help fill in the gaps or give content to what they were saying or doing in some of those places. So yeah, I think that change should have been made. The challenge that I have with that is we all sort of then have to accept, well, that was the only possible error that's in that tool at this point. And the reality is that doesn't feel right, because how many other things in there were told to us, just like as Heather said, in your face, being true, that 1 month from now, 2 months, 6 months, a year from now, we're going to learn were not true.
Yeah.
So that leads to
okay. Sorry, Linda. Go ahead.
No, that leads to my question to you. So if I get an extraction and there's somebody hadn't called the Cellebrite desk order, how am I supposed to know that the tool hasn't been changed before it's given over, either to law enforcement or to the defense? I'd say to law enforcement, because I always view that people view outside clients, defense attorneys and clients who will be law enforcement as the enemy. So they want to make sure it's perfect when they give it to you. So how do I know it hasn't been changed already?
Yeah, the extraction report would tell you what version of the physical analyzer was used. And so you would be able to see that. Then the question comes, is that the most current physical analyzer? For example, I've worked some cases where a physical extraction was done of the mobile device, and the case didn't go to trial for years. And as trial began, defense then did kind of similar to this case. Defense then brings in somebody to examine the phone and discovers new location information on the device that was not available in the original physical extraction version that was used. So does that mean that that was an error? It's hard to say that categorize it as an error, but it was information not known at the time, which could lead to new discoveries, right? So yeah, Linda, I think you do, if you hired somebody, they would be able to tell you what version of the physical analyzer was used and maybe inform you that since then they've made these updates.
Okay. Just fascinating that, we rely so heavily on this. And this is one of the first conversations we had, Michael, was my skepticism about, we started treating cell phone data and location service data as DNA. And I just don't think we're there yet. And we hear that it continues to change, whether that's appropriate or not in the Cellebrite analysis, just reinforces to me that we're just not quite there yet. We need guys like you that are going to go in and clarify what is and isn't to be counted on. What can you rely on? It's just not quite there yet. So are we getting better though? Is it getting better?
Yeah. Can I add maybe just a slight distinction to that? Is my expertise, as you described at the beginning, is in cell site and geolocation type records. I don't do a lot of Cellebrite or forensic digital extraction. It's just, I'd be too busy, right? I do like to do other things. So what I would say is, you heard from Heather that she described forensics as a not static and constantly changing. And so that then means that, and then, Whiffin goes on to say, well, it's based on our understanding at the time. And those are really horrible statements for me to hear as somebody that coaches expert witness. These aren't things you really want to put out there in the ether to be preserved forever for your testimony, because you're just going to hear things like, well, is your understanding today different than it was when you did the extraction? And if so, what do you understand now that has changed? And it's just going to be a horrible cross-examination experience from a good defense attorney if they're prepared. So Mike, I think that it goes back to my point, is that you as an examiner, whether you want to consider yourself an examiner of a mobile device or an examiner of location-based records, you have to remember that you are the expert and the tool aids you in your expertise and your analysis. And when you become, or when you are at the point that the tool is your crutch and you don't know what's happening beyond what the tool produces, then I don't feel you're qualified to be an expert.
Well,
Okay.
pretty well
So
said. Pretty right on the point.
Yep. Let me ask you this as we move through the second part of this. They did it in two parts. I'm still not quite sure why. First part was 10 minutes, which ended without ending. And then the second part is 15. So just in case we don't have time to go through everything, let me give you a few choices here, Michael, and we'll see which one you want to dive into. The second part of this presentation was more like a how-to. How does the amazing Ian Whiffin prepare for testimony and cross-examination? So we have prepping for testimony. We have the make or break evidence. We have preparing for the toughest questions, tailoring your approach, blocking out the noise, and then there's some mean tweets and stuff we won't get into. Of those I mentioned, which one do you like?
Let's start. Can I just start in general and then let's pick one? Would you mind if I did that?
No, of
I know
course.
it's your show, Michael, but I'm taking it over for ransom.
That's okay. I'm used to Linda
Okay.
telling me what
No,
to do.
that's okay. And by the way,
same.
to all of your donations and all of your call outs here, and including your call outs to Michael Bryant, that he's very charming. We'll read them at length when we deal with our rip and read. So just stay with us, everyone.
Okay, so
and
go ahead.
For this second interview, I would just like to say that although there was no end to the first video, their ending, or what I think I took away, and I think many of you would have taken away, is that they still don't know what timestamp is right? They can't say that. And then ultimately, their statement was at the end, I thought was sort of odd. Some of the things they said is that this one that stood out the most to me is the artifact. This is Whiffin. He said the artifact is super easy to validate. Super easy to validate. Yet we still don't know what time it happened. And so it's like, well, if it's super easy to validate, Massachusetts State Police didn't validate it, right? It took some Green and this podcaster to point things out. And then ultimately, the validation or attempted validation done by Whiffin still doesn't define for us definitively the time of that Google search. So that was my takeaway from that, Michael.
Yep.
And
No,
Linda.
I agree. And again, I look back at the first part. Second part is just slightly different, but still, have they helped themselves is what I kept asking myself. And not a chance.
This isn't even neutral. It's bad. It's bad for them. If I was there with them, I would be like, why? I would have a company meeting. Why did we do this? This was whose idea was it? You're fired.
Somebody should be fired.
Yes,
Yeah. Yes.
I would. I'd fire somebody if I was the owner. Then I want to move on to your second question. I apologize.
No. This is a freewheeling thing. We got no agenda here.
Well, you put me in the center, so I feel like I'm in charge somehow.
Good.
Good idea.
The second interview,
You're even dressed like Michael Bryant. Okay.
Hey.
Okay. Say.
Luckily, you don't see my shorts that I'm wearing with this collared shirt.
Yeah. Don't get me started on all that. Yes.
It's California casual, man. The second interview I thought was a continued love affair by Heather with Ian and his genius she referred to him as providing a masterclass in expert testimony. She even said that Ian Whiffin, or she referred to the case as a circus, and that Ian was the ringmaster of that circus. And I thought maybe I was sequestered, so I couldn't watch the videos in real time, but I did go back and watch them. And although I think the categorization of it being somewhat circusy is okay, at no point would I have thought of any of the people that were in that trial that he was the ringleader or ringmaster. And I'm pretty sure Alan and Alessi would probably differ on who was running the show at that court.
He was a clown, though. He was definitely he was a clown. And no doubt about that.
It's just, you know what it does is maybe to use a term of this generation, you're gaslighting us. You are telling us something is not true, or something that is true that we know is untrue from our own observations. And so it's like, man, it makes it hard to believe anything you're saying when you're lying to me about the easy things, right?
Right. True.
So when you guys go on to this second interview and you see that it's about his experience testifying and how he goes about things, I just don't recall him having a huge amount of experience as an expert. I'm not saying he's not an expert, but testifying as an expert does take some experience. And I would say, from my observations of his resume or CV, I only found 15 instances where he listed he testified or was in a trial or testified as an expert or qualified as an expert. And some of those weren't even jury trials. I think a good quarter of them were not jury trials. So then, as somebody that teaches expert testimony or has taught expert testimony, I've testified almost 30 times this year alone, and over 250 trials in my career. That 15, you're not going to make my instructor cadre for expert witness testimony. That's just not enough.
Not going to make the list. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not saying you're not an expert, and I'm not saying you can't be an expert witness. I just don't think you've seen enough or experienced enough to teach people how to do it. So my personal observations then from this second interview was, this is how Ian Whiffin, or what Ian Whiffin took away from this specific trial. And some of those things are just common sense, and you probably don't need a lot of, you don't need to attend the 1 week instructor course on teaching expert testimony to know them. And just for your audience, one was know your evidence and know it deeply. I mean, of course you would like to know what the evidence is.
Good idea.
If you don't know that, why are you there? Maybe you should go home. But the second one I think really kind of stood out for me, Michael, was the one that said make or break. And he said, identify the make or break evidence. Did you want to pull that up?
Yeah, I'm going to find that. I'm going to find it here. Hold on.
Yeah. By the way, everyone's watching. We've timestamped these in areas that we were interested in, and that's if you go back and watch that video again after you leave us,
Yeah.
and you're not watching it on here. It's at 354 of part 2, trial
good.
testimony.
And some of it is the gushing is just nauseating by Miss Barnhart. And clearly she's a shill. I mean, this was never intended, or she's trying to hook up with Ian. I'm not sure which, but clearly this is not an objective interview. This is not a journalist in the flimsiest description. She's in on it. She's in on the deal. So this is the portion that goes to the tough questions, right? That's what you're looking for. Oh, the make or break. Which one was it?
Make or break. Make or break. 354.
Make or break. Okay, let's go. Hold on a sec. Good. Yep. I got you. Okay, here we go. Let me get this bigger here. Okay.
The make or break evidence. So make or break in quotes.
Yeah, so I think this comes with experience. After a while, you start to recognize not just which artifacts exist, but which are the important ones, which are the ones that you really need to spend additional time validating, verifying, testing, researching. If it's simply like an SMS message, for example, that exists on the device, it's pretty straightforward. We know why the SMS message was there. So it may be really good evidence, but it's also really easy to explain. And I think everybody in the world understands what an SMS message is. But if we're talking about something such as a location, for example, there are multiple reasons the location could be there. It could be really important information. So you really need to know why it's there. And that's why you kind of focus on it and do the additional validation and testing.
Fantastic. All right, now the third one.
Was that fantastic? I don't know. Was that? What do you think, Michael? Was that fantastic, or was that just fundamental? What do you take from that?
I don't tend to coach that with expert witnesses. It's not your job to pick winners or losers in the evidence. You're an expert, and you should remain neutral. I realize you may be called by the prosecution or the defense, but your job is to interpret the data and let the data or the results of your interpretation be displayed in a report with opinions and conclusions. Sometimes those opinions and conclusions are going to help defense, and sometimes they're going to help prosecution, but they should always be truthful and accurate. And so I didn't really like this kind of concept that you would make as an expert. Making an assessment during the analysis of what you think is important and what you think is not important, because it's not your job as an expert. That's the investigator's job. That's the attorney's job, because now it puts you in a position of determining what should be provided and not provided. That's also not your job. That's the attorney's job. Let the attorney who knows their case and the investigator knows their case, see the full result and make a determination of what they want you as the expert to further analyze. You shouldn't do a filtering prior to that. That wouldn't be my recommendation. And I don't think many attorneys would want you as the expert to filter out what they get to see before the end result. I mean, Linda, you're shaking your head. Would you want me to just give you what I think is important?
Not. I want everything. I want everything, especially that's why I'm hiring you. I want to know the good and the bad and the indifferent, because sometimes I may have a case that I may have to go back to my client and say, hey, bud, okay, we got a little problem here. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but, this is what was going to be testified against you. And if indeed this is what you did, if you want me, I'll go back and try to get the best deal for you. I want to know what the bad parts are. That's my job.
And that's so good, Linda, because that's exactly what I've been finding with defenses. Mike, I need to know, I need to convince my client of what the evidence is so I can best represent them. And that best representation may be, it looks like you might have done this and you might want to take the plea deal they've offered. It won't go well for you at trial. And so I totally agree with that concept. And can I add one more thing to this, Michael, was that all of those 5 topics, at some point during it, he made reference to validation, testing, and research. And what I'd like to point out is most examiners that are going to do a Cellebrite extraction aren't going around and testing and validating every artifact. He simply did that on the one artifact that we solved, the timestamp for the Google search. And so that kind of representation of validating and testing using, I think he used his own tool, if I remember correctly, when he did this, the testimony.
Right. He did. He used his own tool. That was another thing. That's
Right.
something
And so that then makes, what I don't like about that as an expert is then you're telling future defense attorneys that the only way to know whether or not something is true in the extraction is to validate and test it. And if you didn't validate and test it, then we can't take it as truth. And so that's not a good process or methodology for him to put out as the expert of Cellebrite, telling potential defense attorneys that, guess what? If somebody produces a physical examination and an extraction report, but they did not validate any aspect of that, then you should not take it as truthful.
That's dangerous. Bottom line is you're not hiring the expert to tell you the legal consequence of the things that he's looking into or she's looking into. That's not their job. It's kind of like giving the prosecutor the option to tell the defense what evidence might be important to their case. But that of course, is ridiculous. That would never, ever happen. So,
yeah, can I add one last thing, Michael? Is I would say when I do the examination, or when I do analysis or for a request, if I see something that I think they may not have been aware of in their investigation, I would point it out. But I'm also, when I was doing this, I was an investigator too. And so I'm looking at it from an investigative standpoint, oh God, let me make sure they knew this. And, oftentimes I'll just address it. Hey, when I looked at this, I saw this. Were you already aware of this aspect of your evidence? And sometimes it's no, and sometimes it's yes.
And sometimes, may I just say, that the prosecution isn't aware of that aspect of the evidence that's uncovered. So the next question to the expert is, did they find that somewhere in the data and their evidence and just don't know they have it? I don't know if you've ever experienced that from a defense team.
Yeah. I think I've experienced every aspect of defense. But yeah, this to me was, I always think of it as this, maybe I give this point, is a lot of times new witnesses always think of it as scoring points. I'm going to score points for the prosecution. Because I tend to coach or help investigators. Your job's not to win points. It's not a game of points. Because if you can score points, that means you can lose points. And your job isn't to win or lose the case, although maybe your testimony can ultimately be so heavily weighted by the jury that it does help with a verdict. But your job's not to pick the winners and losers of the evidence. That's kind of, I think, what my final point on that would be.
Well, let's do this in the few minutes we have left, because we're not going to hold you on. There's one moment at the very end that I definitely want to get your reaction to, and it was a live moment at the end of one of the experts' testimony, and the defense was putting on their case. I think it's either a twisted version of reality or they were really trying to snow people. But before we get to that, one more. This one I'm going to go with block out the noise, because I think in this case, maybe above any other, that is an issue. Whether he was able to do that or not, don't know. And I want to get your take on that. Hold on just a moment. We'll go to that one. Okay.
They block out the noise.
Yeah, so this particular case was kind of unique to me. I've testified in many cases before. Several of those have been relatively high profile, but this was another level. Personally, I found I had to turn off Twitter. I didn't open Twitter or X for probably about 8 months. I was very careful other social media platforms I was using to block out anything that was related to the case. I didn't want to know, basically. I don't want my kind of opinion to be shifted based on what I'm seeing online. All I want to know is the data that's put in front of me. That is the data that I have to testify to and understand. I don't need that outside influence. So essentially ignore everything apart from the data.
Can you imagine, Michael, if he had not done that? Talk about the importance of being able to do that and focus on your job. I'm not sure if it's normally within your scope anyway. Are you normally checking social media in the midst of preparing for or giving testimony in a trial?
I don't think he would have been permitted to, as a witness, to be watching any aspect of this and looking at the internet. I think Judge Bev's order was pretty clear. I don't think he should have been doing those things anyway. Right, Linda?
Right, absolutely right. That's exactly what I was thinking.
So when I heard this, I was like, well, you did what you were ordered to do, which is to not review social media. And as an expert witness, what stood out for me when one of his statements is that he said, I didn't want my opinion to be shifted by what I see online.
Right. That's what I wrote down.
If anybody's hiring an expert whose opinion can be shifted by what they read on the internet, you should stop paying them and hire somebody else. Right. I think Barnhart even made this statement. This is the type of advice she could use in everyday life. And when she said that, I thought, she's not putting out a very good image of her being confident and poised and articulate and capable of handling high stress situations with confidence. And so I would have reservations as an attorney putting her up on the stand if her life revolves around what people say about her on the internet. That would be alarming to me.
Interesting. Now let me just say one thing there as an attorney. As an attorney, we do check at the internet, okay? We do see, especially if we're trying to make it a point, did it get through people, that people understand, especially when you're dealing with a very difficult forensic issue. But our case is not, shall we say, controlled by the internet. Let me make that distinction.
And jury selection. That's always a very important part of checking out people, because they post things they don't even think about, and then you're going through a jury selection process, and you learn things that maybe they didn't disclose to you.
Yeah,
okay.
And the fact that your opinion could be swayed by an internet post is just not what experts should be putting out there on a YouTube video. That I can tell you right now that you could say the most horrible things about me, or even just the nicest things, and I'm not going to go back to my report and go, you know what, maybe that person was right, I should change this. Right? That's not how I approach my work.
As a matter of fact, if you're in a high profile, difficult case, usually as a defense, you're getting the jabs and the arrows, and you better be able to stick to your guns, and you better be able to stick to what your opinion is, no matter how many people come by and want to smack you in the head. And we see that as defense attorneys too. I mean, I remember getting things on X that were like, my client gunshot through the head. You can't be, you have to ignore that. You can save it to know who that person is just in case something happens, but you can't shift your representation because you're hated.
Right. You bring up a conversation I had with my college-age daughter, which was, she was going through a difficult moment. And it's really sort of parallel to this in people's own lives, is that you'll come across things that challenge your identity, challenge your character, challenge your purpose, and make you question whether or not your character and purpose are movable, right? And when you come up against those things, somebody that is steadfast in their belief of who they are as a person will not be swayed or impacted by these challenges. Instead, what you described, Linda, is they become hardened in them. They refine them. They sharpen their character. And, you look at some of the most successful people, things that challenge their character or their purpose, refine them, sharpen them, didn't destroy them.
Yeah. And I don't have any problem being challenged that way. I would consider the source, but it also might make me think about something I hadn't thought about and reinforce what I'm trying to do or say. So, I think it can be helpful, but you sure aren't going to go in being malleable, waiting for somebody to give you reviews and then adjust accordingly. Okay, we have one more thing before we let you go. This is a reference to what happened after one of the court dates, right outside on the sidewalk. I'm very familiar with this area, where Karen Reed, gag order, she could talk, attorneys couldn't. She was asked about Richard Green. Listen to how this plays out. Richard Green being another defense expert who was not called. That was by choice, not called. But listen to how this plays out.
Guaranteed.
All right. So beyond all these mean tweets and all this ridiculousness and people just being social trolls, in the
Michael,
end,
we're not seeing it. We're not
all
seeing
over
it.
the battle.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you hearing it?
Yes, we're hearing it, but we're not.
Are you
seeing
hearing it? Oh, too bad you didn't see. She was doing. I think she did a hair toss at some point. You missed that. Okay, sorry.
27 a.m. timestamp. In the second trial, Karen Reed actually said she was not having her defense expert return because Ian Whiffin was right.
Are we going to hear from Richard Green in this trial?
No.
Why not?
I believe the evidence is all out and in part from Ian Whiffin.
How does it make you feel, Ian, that Karen said your name on the screen and said Ian Whiffin was right?
So I mean, it was validation. I was already confident in my answer. I knew I was right with it. I was disappointed that the defense didn't put their expert on the stand to put his opinion across and to have that kind of debate and to evidence their position. But Karen saying that I was right is a close second. I'll take it.
Okay. First of all, how they interpret what she said as saying Ian Whiffin was right, I will never understand. Except I guess you go in with something you want to hear, and that's what you hear. That's not what I heard. What did you hear, Michael?
I heard Heather's interpretation based on her inexperience of going to trial. What you heard, for those of us, the three of us sitting here in your audience that's been through this all, what you heard is a very informed defendant saying that we got what we want out of Ian Whiffin. And we got the evidence that we needed introduced, which is ultimately that Ian Whiffin can't validate what the timestamp was. And it created what I would consider uncertainty and confusion, which is one of the great hopes for reasonable doubt.
Yes,
right. And so I think what her comment clearly is not a reflection of Karen Reed's statement. And she didn't even pick up the meaning of the coded statement that Karen Reed did make, which is, thanks, Mr. Whiffin, you've proved our point.
Yeah, and you don't want the defense to be glad a prosecution witness testified, and so glad they don't even feel the need to attack that testimony. That interpretation blew me away.
Yeah. Can I add two more things, Mike, before we go? I don't want to capitalize on your channel, but I had two more things if you don't mind.
Of course.
That is, I think, an important takeaway, which is when I teach moot court, I always work with the attorneys that play the defense. And one of the key themes that I like to help them work out the student and make sure the defense attorneys bring out of our students is make the government's expert your expert. And then once you've got them to start saying what you want for your theme, you don't have to counteract what they're doing. Just get them to agree that part of the interpretation is also consistent with the defense theory. And that's what they use. That's a great theme. It's one of my favorites for the defense and the students to go through, because you sort of get slow walked into it and you're like, wait a second, I'm just proving their case all of a sudden. How did this happen? So I think, Mike, that's a great thing to pick up on there. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I saw that as well. And then can I add one thing? I know you didn't cover the tweets, but I thought
I skipped over the tweets.
The main tweets, they're at 10:16 on the second video, if anyone wants to go and watch them, by the way.
Yeah, is one, mean tweets. I didn't find any of these to be mean. They weren't overly disparaging. They were comments about what the tweeter was observing from their own statements. And so I thought that was an interesting take for me, that Heather found these to be mean. I just thought them to be observations. So if you think those are mean, we both have different lifestyles, because I didn't find them mean. But I thought something was really important here. And I don't want to read the tweet because I have to put my glasses back on to read it. But I remembered enough to paraphrase it in substance, is that the tweet was calling into question that he can't even admit that they pointed out that he changed his report. And they both laugh and say, we didn't change anything. And then they go on and say, we just changed the tool, and the tool changed the result. And therefore, Ian updated his report. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not sure. Well, this is sort of in keeping with Heather's interpretations of things. She thinks Karen Reed praised Ian Whiffin, and she thinks changing the tool and updating your report do not constitute a change. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, that is a new report. it contains new opinions, and therefore you have a changed report. I think what's hard, though, for experts or people that are kind of in my shoes like that, or even in their shoes, is that when someone tells you something that you changed it, you instantly feel defensive, and then therefore you feel the need to defend that it's not a change, it's an update. You want to rephrase it to make you still look good. The reality is just accept it. Yes, I changed the report because the tool we use now produces a different result, and therefore I'm required to update my opinion based on that new data. They tried to hide it as if there was something nefarious, which then makes it nefarious.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Exactly. Absolutely. That was a great point about the quote, what they characterize as mean tweets, coming from, I guess, the mean people,
Well, I think
very informed viewers.
Maybe I said 2, but this is the third one, Mike, because we can't leave with 2. We have to go with 3. I was thinking this morning, how many investigators or witnesses from this case have torpedoed their careers? I mean, somebody's probably made a list. I mean, you could start at the top with Proctor, Trooper Paul,
right.
Brian Higgins. I'm sure has been impacted as an agent. These individuals have been impacted. I mean, Devers no longer a law enforcement officer. I mean, there's just so many that were impacted by this case, and I think that's what made it so intriguing was the human aspects of this.
Yeah, good point. I mean, the wreckage is far and wide. Yeah. Wow. Well, one good thing came from it, because we found you after Bev tried to muzzle you. We found you, and
I almost think maybe she did me a favor because I hope my career wouldn't have been ended after that one.
Yeah, good point.
And we'll have to have you back when we peruse. We're going to talk a little bit about it after you leave. When we peruse Proctor's, eventually get Proctor's download, because we have another casualty, Sergeant Good, in the Canton Police Department.
Yeah.
So that's going to be something that we'll talk about later when we have access to why he just was, shall we say, put on leave after that.
There's plenty more to come, I fear. So, Michael, thank you again. Always a pleasure. Always entertaining. A lot of our folks say the same thing, I think, which is I could talk to this guy forever. And so the comments are always so nice, and we appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you both. And I thought an hour would be way too much. But it's just proof that I probably should stop talking so much about that.
We have more.
What's going to happen? They're going to come back and say, "Can you have him come back and do? Let's see, you have way better, and you have all. Have him come back for part 2."
I have like 4 pages of notes, and we covered 3 paragraphs. So I'm like,
I know. I told you that's why I had to be surgical.
In fairness, I'm a volunteer coach, and we have practice at 4:30. And my volunteer coaching is absolutely mandatory because there'll be a lot of kids wondering where coach is at. So
I've done the same myself, and I respect that, and the kids love that. So go do your thing. What's the sport?
Soon.
What sport?
Track and field. My daughter's on the team, so as a dad, you kind of want to be
there. You go. We know you're on the West Coast because nobody out here is doing a lot of track and field.
So it'd be cross country, but we have our track team also does winter workouts. So
well, Coach, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Okay, love that guy. Do we have another 3 more hours?
We had all this stuff prepped, but you know what? We're gonna have him back, obviously, because we have a lot to talk about. But we do have a lot to talk about on our Rip and Reads here today, Michael Bryant.
Oh, yes, we do.
Okay.
We're doing this backwards because we wanted to have all the time we possibly could with Michael Easter, which we did, and so now we're going to pick up the loose ends at the end of the show.
Well, they're not so loose. Let me just start with something that I feel really I've had a disagreement with Missy on about. No. We're airing it out. Okay. Over the weekend, and you got to take that off the stage. You have to take them. You have to take Heather and Ian off the stage. I called her dear. I don't know, but people have called me a lot worse, and
I see that. Wait a second. I think it's gone now, Missy. I think it's gone.
Okay, I can add this. Okay, this, okay? This is a Halloween party. This is Julia Fox, a terrific actress, who went as Jackie Kennedy in the blood-stained suit when her husband was assassinated. Now, Missy thinks that I'm taking this maybe not well, because she said she was trying to make a statement. That Jackie Kennedy made a statement that she wanted everyone to see what they did to Jack. I think that's a cover your ass statement afterwards. It's not a Halloween costume. This may be horror, but in my view, this is not a Halloween costume. And I've thought about this. Imagine seeing the family and knowing that somebody has come dressed as your mother, your grandmother, in the most tragic circumstances, and the first really assassination on TV that this country has seen. Okay, now we've gotten a little bit harder to this, but this was a horrible moment. It's a horrible moment in the courtroom, everybody, when a victim's clothes are brought up by the prosecution, for the family members that are in the courtroom. Let's remember that. It's a horrible moment whenever we see bloodstained clothes. Let's remember that, of somebody that's died. But here, I think it's a horrible moment. It's also in bad taste. What she doesn't do when she says when she's justifying this, or they're justifying this, is that what they don't have, because they said that exact same bloodstains that are on her pantyhose, her stockings, and all. What they don't have is the brain matter that was all over that suit. What they don't have is the national tragedy of the whole United States mourning Jackie Kennedy. On that, she was whatever you think of the Kennedy family, this was truly a terrible thing. And what you don't have is the fact that she covered her husband's body with her body, getting a lot of that blood on that suit, getting that brain matter on that suit.
And
So
she
when you
crawled
want
out of the car to get what had blown off of his head,
Right.
It was resting on the trunk. I mean, think of any, as you were talking about this, I can't think of any victim of a horrific crime like this that you would ever dress up like.
No, I can't.
I just can't imagine it.
Yeah, and this is something that's seared in the consciousness of our country, and for many people that were alive at the time. And also, her grandson tweeted about this. This is just not a joke. It is, we all can deal with morbid. We all can deal with crime. We can all deal with different things. We can all deal with heartbreak. But this, to me, is somebody needs to go back to school and maybe learn exactly what it's like. And maybe before you get dressed in that outfit, go onto somebody dead, find somebody's dead, see their brain matter, and have it smeared all over that suit. And then maybe you can come out and say you're dressed as Jackie Kennedy. So,
And who was that person again?
Julia Fox.
I don't know her.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. So that's that's a Linda rant, and yes, I do think that it's inappropriate. The next thing that I have is something I'd like to do real quickly, because I want to counteract that, and it brings up the sadness that I actually have, and this is something that happened over the weekend, and it was covered by and don't just say in the New York Post just because it's the New York Post. It was covered. I heard it on TV early, and this is a 39-year-old man. We had serious storms here in New York last Thursday, right? He was 39. He died trying to rescue his dogs from a flooded basement. And what happened was he was in Brooklyn, and he had gotten out of the house. It flash flood into the house. He went, and he was fine. He was safe, but his dogs weren't. And so he went back into the basement to get his dogs, where he drowned. And a scuba team had to take him out of the basement of his house. You can look at he rushed back to save his dogs. And quite frankly, I almost wanted to cry when I heard this. Nothing on the dogs. I assume they also drowned again, but I cried. But this is a person who deserves to be lauded, a person who deserves to be remembered. Okay, his name was not in the articles. If you find his name, I want to put it up on our website and all. But you can Google search it. It's just tragic. It's terrible, and I'd rather have somebody like this than somebody who mocks somebody, or they don't think they're, and they don't even think they're mocking.
Yeah, I'd dive in for my dog. I think most of us would.
Yep. Yeah. And then the third rip and read I have is something, Michael, I know you're going to want to talk about pretty well. And this has to do with somebody who's maybe bad, not good, since we're doing bad versus good on this situation. And this has to do with, as you know, last week, Proctor's phone was protected after it was downloaded. But on the same day that that report came out, Sergeant Good was apparently suspended, as Sean Good, from the Canton Police Department. First, the Canton Police Department would not try to, indicate that it was Sergeant Good. And today they issued a second statement that came out this afternoon. And they did say that it's Sergeant Sean Good who has been, and by the way, I see somebody putting, but let me get to Sean Good. Sergeant Sean Good has been suspended from his job at the Canton Police Department. He testified in the Karen Reed trial. He provided, if you recall, the leaf blower to blow the snow. He also said he found a piece of evidence that now is really suspect, right? And by the way, Canton, I know all of you will be happy. They said they take these very seriously, and they have hired somebody to do an independent administrative investigation into Sarge Good, who, by the way, even though he is on leave, is being paid, unlike Kelsey Fitzsimmons, right? So I know we have sent a tweet out to directly, an X post out directly to the group that did investigate the prior, the Karen Reed response, right, in Canton PD, to see whether or not they will be doing the investigation here. I know you're all waiting.
Oh, I'm sure. I trust it 100%. Whatever that investigation is, I'm all in. I'm sure it'll be done properly.
Yeah, and we did it as five, God bless you, 5S intelligence. I asked them to confirm or deny whether they've been engaged by the town of Canton, because the press release didn't say who was, to perform an independent administrative investigation. The allegations of Sergeant Sean Good misconduct. If you have a contract, what is your fee for such contract and your assigned parameters? I haven't checked our X account today. Tonight while we've been on the show, but
let me look at that. I'm sure there's a few responses.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. And then I have to remove that. Missy, can you help me remove that from because indeed I did see all of you did get the name of the tragic hero. And if we have that put up, we can put that up before we get to all of our we'll find that and put that up before we get to all of our donations and everything that occurred when Mike Easter was on the site. But I know you have your Ripper Reads, and then I'll go back.
I just got a couple, and I want to give a promo shout out to Richie at Microdots. Check out, he's just released, just before we went on the air, he released a Sean Good edition, I'll call it. So for those who don't remember Sean Good, it's not like Higgins or some of the other players where their image kind of pops into your head, but he does give you a reminder as to who this was and what the situation is and how his testimony was entertaining in a bad way. So check that out, Microdots. Richie just put that out, like a little 10-minute special. So Sarah Boone, as you know, she continues to be very upset with her parade of attorneys. We've been trying. I sent a note. Her last reach out to us, again, Sarah Good, of course, the woman convicted in the death of her fiance, zipped him in a suitcase, wouldn't let him out when he screamed and yelled to do that. And he said, Sarah, and she said, that's my name, don't wear it out. We were down there in Orlando for that trial. So I've sent her a number of letters. The last one I sent was just last week, and it just says, I'm following up on my earlier request to interview you for Just to Serve TV. Again, was at your trial and would like to know how you're doing now. Thanks for considering our request. And then I sent her a post on X, because if you'll recall, when I labeled one of our segments, everybody hates Sarah Boone, she responded on X, not everybody. And so we bonded. So with that bond in mind, I'm hoping she'll take us up on it.
I think she goes into the bad part of our segment. I mean, she's one of the bad people.
She's something. Yeah. And one more thing. Again, continuing my relationship with the clerk at the SJC full panel, single justice doer. Did you? I did a short on this the other day. Maybe you didn't see it, but I was talking to my friend at the court, and I said, well, everybody's going to look at it, but Justice Dewar, right? The one who did the single justice. Right. And he said, well, it's not Dewar, it's Doer. And I said, oh, you mean like the liquor? and he said, yeah, that's right. He said, I had to tell her that it's really not very good liquor. And I said, well, I hope it's not the same family, but this is really, and in the world of Scotch. This is rot gut. It's a blended Scotch. You know, people who like Scotch like single malt, like Glenfiddich, etc., Laprogue. Anyway, so I had to get this. So if you see this on the expense report for next month, you'll know what the liquors were. Dewar's. So Dewar's has not been undone yet. There is nothing on the calendar for the full panel SJC for the Kelsey Fitzsimmons case, and that goes through the end of the year. It's already kind of packed. They only do 3 days a month for oral argument. So one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to somehow try to shove this in with other things already on the calendar, or they're going to do it without oral argument, which of course was requested, as was the in-person hearing. So nothing new. I'll continue to be on these guys every day. So as soon as it happens, we'll pass it along.
Well, that's a pretty good update. So with that, let's go to the real stars of the show. That's our viewers who are watching and who donate. Deborah Gelsey, is it Gelsey? Gelsey gifted 5 Justice Serve TV memberships. They've already been given out. We thank you so much. That's so great for people. There will be an update this week with maybe a meeting for the hunt, because I keep getting more of our viewers who are members who are following the hunt to who killed Stephanie Vilko in Oregon in 1968. We're now confirmed that pretty much we know that she met a violent death. I've been sending different things, and we want to have a meeting. We're just trying to figure out how to do that on StreamYard. And there you are, a new member, Deborah Gelsey. Thank you so much. People that get the memberships that you just gifted you're so generous with. I really appreciate them. Joey Kane.
While we're talking membership, so good. More membership stuff with Joey. Tomorrow, I'm interviewing Justin Brooks, the author of That You Might Go to Prison Even Though You're Innocent. This will be the first of the Justice Serve TV book club episodes. We're going to record it tomorrow, probably release that on Wednesday. So that's the plan. And it'll be a members only piece of information for you. So
that's great. That's in our book hub. And Joey Kane, who gifted 1 and a second Justice Serve TV membership. Joey did a little gift for me when we were doing a gift for me when we were doing the coverage of Karen Reed 2, and he did Ian Wiffle Ball, because I've been calling him Wiffle Ball. So we'll have to
Ian
find
Whiffin
that.
comes back from the dead on the show tonight.
Wiffle Ball. That's right. And then Shari Schreiber. Thank you, Shari. If you haven't looked at the episode Shari did on with addiction, with recovery on us, please go. It's in our Justice Serve TV library. She is absolutely great. And then Carol James. It's 06D, gifted 1 Justice Serve TV membership. Thank you very much, Cairo James, for that.
And then check this out.
You
received a Joey Kane membership.
Right,
there you go.
Right there. That's terrific. Lynette McVicker, that comment pissed me off. I can say that. I'm the host. I'm dumb around this stuff, but not stupid. Jurors may not know that either. That's when I had made the comment about Heather, and she just insulted the intelligence of everybody. By saying, "Well, you're not one of us."
Do you think, she's in-house, or do you think they brought her in as an in-house shill?
Well, whatever she is, she's not good at it. Okay.
Because she tried to be, I'm all just chummy and, not just gushing over Ian Whiffin, but also, I'm trying to, better myself, and this will help me in my own life, trying to be charming. I don't know. I'd love to know how that whole thing came together and who the genius was that decided it was a good idea.
Yeah, and they're going to be cross-examined on. He's going to be cross-examined on in his very limited trial testimony for years to come. It's never going to go away. It's now on the internet, the thing that you don't pay attention to. Okay. The OG Forest Dump. Disappointed. Thank you for your donation, by the way. You're kind. Yes, Mr. Easter, but a better word for this promo, and he put that in quotes, or she put that in quotes, is arrogant. That's true. It kind of was arrogant, because it would indicate that, it wasn't just kept in house. If it was kept in house, it's one thing, but it wasn't.
Exactly.
House,
and then maybe it's subject to discovery in another case at some other time. Right. But here they've thrown it out there, and even with our smart audience, it's going to be spread around. I know Mike Crawford at Young Jerks also looked at it on his own a week or so ago. So it's been out there, exposed far beyond what it ever should have been. Too bad.
Yeah, well, that's what you do. Catherine Thoreau, Thoure, T. Thuray. I hate to mispronounce names. It's so hard when we
It's
get
very
here.
tricky sometimes.
6110, no self-awareness,
Yeah.
talking about those videos. You're absolutely right. If you haven't
Yeah.
seen them, you can go on. I think Missy can post the website. No, we don't want to give them. We're not going to give them.
Yeah, it's actually on the Cellebrite
site.
Right. Just like any other YouTube channel, you go on and it'll show videos and they will be there. At the end of part 1, it just tells you, go on to part 2, get out there. So it's very easy.
Yeah. We can't wait. Maybe we'll do some more of it next time Mike is available. Sandy RN, Callie, thank you again for that generous donation. I apologize. I don't know what you were apologizing for because I missed that. But Agent Easter, you are very charming to watch. Bless your wife. Love. He's charming. I'm sure he'd be charming to testify too, but he knows what he's doing. So I would,
yes,
I would not want to go against someone who I've now dubbed the Beast, and I say that in a good way. Okay?
But as someone says, nothing. You don't underestimate likability, and the guy is very likable.
You've said that. Yes. Yeah, but he is dressing like you now. He's dressing like the host of JSTV. You better watch your job.
Yeah. Well, I'm already on thin
I'm dressing like a candy cane. Apparently, I'm ready for Christmas. Because it was a play on Christmas, Easter, Christmas.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joey Kane, again, thank you very much, Joey. 2 other Forensic Tools show, 227.40 a.m. has a hostility. Yes, you're absolutely right. And there was Mike Easter's website that, in case you didn't seen it, it went past you too fast. And then again, I will keep this on. This was for a moment we're going to go on, but I'm going to pass this again. The man trying to save his dogs, the hero, Aaron Akabari, 39.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Hero, thank you. And for everyone else that found it, Kay Schmidt gets it 5 Justice Serve TV memberships. Thank you, Kay, as usual. Deborah Gelsey, again, 9689. Thank you for becoming a new member and gifting those memberships. And for this donation, someone needs to figure out Matthew Farwell is related to Winthrop Farwell, who is very powerful in Brockton, next door to Staunton. Oh, okay. All right, Justice Serve TV, servers, sleuthers.
Yeah.
Sleuths. Okay.
I would say, I don't know, but I would bet he is. Just based on the area. We learned, remember when I did the report the other day from Salem, and the very first witch, do you remember that story? I know it was a whole week plus ago.
No, I saw that story. I was fascinated
The witch trials in 1692, most people think witches were all women. Well, they weren't. In fact, the first witch was a guy named Proctor, and his wife's name was Elizabeth Proctor. I wonder if she's reincarnated. So I use that example just to say it's a lot of relatives in that area.
Yeah, certainly a lot of the same names, and I guess you could go on that. What's the website that
23andMe or Ancestry.com?
I think it's Ancestry.com because that's where we're doing a bunch of our research for the Stephanie murder investigation. We're calling it murder. They didn't. The medical examiner had classified it because she was found with just her bones. But you can try to go looking through all of the records that they have and try to find that out from 1692. Was it the first death, Michael?
1692.
1692. All right. Remember, that's where your grain of salt came by that we talked about too. If you put a grain of salt in that hand and it didn't melt, you're okay. But if it started to melt, that salt, you were a witch. Of course, you were about to be burned at the stake. I would imagine that the fire that's around you would melt the grain of salt.
Yeah, that might be the least of your worries. Common sense. Michael, do we know if the judge, Kathleen, who put Kelsey back in jail, is connected to anyone in her case? I read something. I haven't verified it, but it was something about her husband's connection to somebody else. I have a feeling we'll learn all by the time it comes back to her, and it will come back to her at some point, whether it's through the appellate process or just the normal course. Remember, she's the trial judge. So when we get a chance, we'll definitely dig more into Kathleen McCarthy.
Okay. Let's hope we never get the chance. Let's hope that it never comes back.
Wouldn't that be nice? That would be nice. But I don't count on anything at this point. So.
Yep. All right.
Anything else? You're good? You're good? You're cleaned up?
I'm good. I think we cleaned up. I think we've, wait a second. There's somebody else who donated. Thank you.
Disappeared. Oh, there it is.
Craft Tactical, thanks for the great show. You two are such great interviews. Thank you so much. Michael Bryant
Yes, we
really worked
appreciate it.
hard at making sure that he logged everything for Michael Easter. And Michael Easter really worked hard. As you see, he had 4 pages of notes. We got to like one.
I did. What did I tell you? What did I tell you ahead of time? I said, he's going to have this broken down time, and I said, I got to do something to at least try to keep up with this guy because he's the best. And you know what they
He's
say?
the best. The best.
A good interview makes the host look better. So our goal is just to ride the backs of a great interview guest like Michael Easter.
And speaking about
so
that,
good.
if you didn't watch or look at our interview that we had the other night with Alan Jackson, it's only like 1 of 5 that he's given out there. It's in our library. If you go on our page at Justice Serve TV, it'll pop right up for you. Join 30,000 of your friends who have also looked at it. And when you look at it, please hit that subscribe button. All this work, for subscribe, help all of us, including our wonderful producers who Missy Mayhem, Oasis Cat, who really volunteer their time to you, not to really to us, to you, to get the show on the air. But please do that. Subscribe, like, share, notify, but hit that subscribe button and then the share.
Yep, and we get tons of comments too, which I know take a little more effort. But if you want to just vent and get that out there, we're happy to read them and do our best to respond to all of them.
Yeah.
All righty then. So
there's another Deborah again. Deborah, thank you. Very active member, just joining today and gifting and
Stoughton
donating.
Brockton are intertwined with Easton and Bridgewater.
Hopefully
Okay.
not Mike Easton. He's out in California.
I would not be surprised.
Not
Yeah,
surprise
that is
me.
the triangle
Yeah.
of terror: Canton, Dedham, Stoughton. So we'll dig into a little bit more about the judge when we can. We've been focusing on this appeal, but hopefully that'll go well. All right then, partner. Nice work. I guess we'll do something again tomorrow. Good idea.
Yeah, good idea. And our thumbnail will be up, and we'll let you know in the morning. But Michael Bryant and I kind of know what we were going to do, and we're going to surprise you all with it.
Maybe, yeah. In the meantime, hey, this is Justice Serve TV. Try to do the right thing.
Riding flames, they charge with